America is at a crossroads. Either it fights for its identity or it slips to becoming a socialist nation.
We will replace the frigidity of rugged individualism with the warmth of collectivism.
Yes, that is the mayor of New York City. And yes, that actually happened. Despite what people believe, America is not the same country that it was 40 to 50 years ago. Just look at this stat. In 1960, the percentage of Americans that were married and owned a home was at 52%. Today, it's just 12%. And it's not just the American dream that's slipping. Even our music sucks. The number of hit songs that had a key change has fallen from about 35% to almost zero over the same time period. And people will say, yeah, it's because we're losing the things that made America America. Freedom, capitalism, individualism, entrepreneurship. It's all being replaced by socialism. But if you've been listening to the show for any amount of time, you have to understand that the manipulation of money manipulates all of the things that are affected by money, which is everything in our lives. Not only now do you work hard for yourself and your family, you have to work for someone else who isn't part of your family and who you have to accept into your community. It's a pretty sad state of affairs. I mean, we take in $2.5 trillion in income taxes, yet $1.5 trillion of that goes to fraud. And Minnesota is just the tip of the iceberg. This is a fantastic episode for us to get back to the basics. Why the root of many of the challenges that we face in America aren't broken ideals, but broken money. If we don't have an asset like Bitcoin to hold people and governments accountable, then what force do we actually have to fight back with? I'm going to break it down today for us. This is Dante Cook with Bitcoin Simply. Let's go. The rapper who you heard performing, his name is called Bubblicious, and the song is called Gaddy Red Challenger. Let me translate those lyrics for you. Whenever I'm in my car, sometimes I have to flex. Any city I go, everyone shows respect. Brampton is where I'm from, my beautiful Punjabi lady. Gaddy Red Challenger, speakers going crazy. This dude is boasting in America, not in English, without an American flag on the stage. If I was there, I might have pulled up on my man like Chris Tucker in Rush Hour 3.
Sing the national anthem.
I don't suffer the
Not that one, man. Sing the American one.
I know it.
Oh, say, can you see?
Oh, see, can you see?
Just to make sure people get this clear, we are still in America. So you might want to have an American flag on stage. You might want to wear American colors. I might have just flown a B-2 over the parade. Sort of what happened at the Indiana-Alabama game. Sometimes you just got to send a message.
There's some things that USA has that nobody else does. College football is one of them. And a B-2 stealth bomber is another. Greatest country on earth, no questions asked. Well, thank you.
Wow.
Hell yeah, America.
Yes. Holy shit.
Yeah. Yeah. Now let's kick off the second half of the Rose Bowl.
But like Pat said, there's stuff going on in America that doesn't happen anywhere else in the world. Like us collecting more income taxes than every other country except China, yet us paying out more in fraud, $1.5 trillion is the estimation, than almost every other country in the world except 4. The HUD Secretary Scott Turner just dropped a bomb on how much waste is actually being uncovered. $77 million to deceased tenants, $150 million to non-existent social security numbers, $5.2 billion to inactive accounts.
$7 million in payments to around 30,000 dead tenants. About $150 million was paid out to people with non-existent social security numbers, and around $288 million was paid to support excessively high rent. But according to HUD, the vast majority of these incorrect payments, $5.2 billion of them, were made to people with inactive SAM.gov accounts, the government website where people can register for assistance. The payments that are being scrutinized here fall under 2 programs, tenant-based rental assistance and project-based rental assistance. Project-based rental assistance subsidizes housing units so low-income individuals can afford them system with the government paying the property owner, and then tenant-based rental assistance goes directly to the person in need. In total, HUD sent out around $50.4 billion in rental assistance payments in 2024 to more than 204,000 individuals. The potential error flagged by HUD would make up for around 11.5% of these payments.
This is hitting every hard-working, tax-paying American in the wallet every single month, every single day. And it's not just happening on the housing front. It's happening in the entrepreneurship front as well. SBA Administrator Kelly Loeffler goes to the extent of the fraud that's happening. During COVID, 8,000 borrowers took out almost 7,000 loans, totaling $400 million.
Out of $1.2 trillion that went out through SBA funds during COVID. Now remember, these COVID-era loans helped millions of small businesses keep millions of employees on their payroll. Most were legitimate. But the fact is, we had organized crime operating around these, like we see with the Somali crime ring in Minnesota. And so we have gone back through loans that the Biden administration tried to forgive that were known to be fraudulent. That's why we already had 13,000 that we knew had been marked as fraudulent. We're able to find quickly 8,000 of those and make sure that they cannot benefit from our services. But now, as I mentioned, we're going to do that state by state. We are going to make sure, now that we understand the breadth and the depth and the method of these crimes, that we hold more states accountable. And so we are making that commitment.
The incoming UN Security Council president is a Somalian individual who happens to own a home healthcare company in Ohio. This company also shares the same address as a money transmitter company who has ties to the Middle East. Ironic? Maybe. Ironically, when people are uncovering the massive amounts of fraud that's happening in this country, people like Shlomo Kramer, an Israeli president and CEO, founder of Palo Alto Networks, coming on television saying that we might need to limit the First Amendment. We need to be able to limit or control what you can say or do based upon your ranking of this social system that we have.
And I know it's difficult to hear, but it's time to limit the First Amendment in order to protect it. And quickly before it's too late.
What do you mean?
I mean that we need to control the platforms, all the social platforms. We need to stack rank the authenticity of every person that expresses themselves online and take control over what they are saying based on that ranking.
The government should control the social media.
Should do that.
We don't need to expose the fact that in California, there were 1.2 million fake community college students. We don't need to expose a 92-page report that there was $70 billion lost in 2025. An $18 billion rail car project hasn't had a single track laid.
California Congressman Kevin Kiley, he is sounding the alarm in his home state, saying under Governor Gavin Newsom's leadership, it has become the, quote, fraud capital of America.
And we have team coverage. Our national correspondent Alana Austin is on Capitol Hill with more on the investigations into Tim Walz. But we start with correspondent Heather Myers, who has more on what is going on in California. A rainy day out there on the West Coast. Heather, what can you tell us?
Well, good afternoon to you, Katrina and Andrew. This latest report was issued by the state auditor, and that's a nonpartisan position. That state auditor now puts 8 state agencies on the high-risk list of agencies to watch out for things like fraud and mismanagement as well as waste. Here's a look at that 92-page report. Newly added to the high-risk list is California's food stamp program. If the state doesn't get the improper payments under control, it could cost an extra $2.5 billion. Also on there is the Department of Finance, which was tasked with giving out COVID relief funds. Critics say $32 billion of that was taken by fraudsters. Then there are infrastructure issues like California's deteriorating dams and also the high-speed train that's already cost taxpayers $18 billion without a single section of track complete.
Oh, I get it. You know how we're supposed to fight back? Fair and free elections. Like the 2008 election, where 19% of all voters in Minnesota actually popped up on the day of the election.
Did you know that in 2008, 500,000 voters, or nearly 19% of all voters in Minnesota, registered on election day?
You know what? I think we need to elect a different system. A system that has rules without rulers. A fair system, a free system based upon energy, based upon merit, based upon randomness, based upon opportunity, based upon you saving and storing more value that that you've created than the amount that you've expended or spent. Seems like a novel concept, one that's been implemented since 2009, January 3rd, I think, and it's been running autonomously without anyone in between, no single person, no single ruler, in a decentralized fashion with a 99.999% uptime. I wonder what that network is. Oh yeah, it's Bitcoin. We need to elect a system that can't be bought, that can't be manipulated, that can't be corrupted. We need to fix the money. And that's the basis of how we fix the world. Because the reality is we're storing all of our time, our money, and energy into this currency. This thing that we all need to pay for goods and services with. This thing that we use as a social services system if you're a Somalian that is trying to start a daycare company out of your house with 8 kids and you're earning up to $400,000 a year without working on the backs of other people paying taxes. Well, if you can manipulate that system, well, no duh, it manipulates everything else underneath of it. That's why we need to go back to clips like this from Natalie Brunell. Fix the money, fix the world.
Well, how do we fix the money?
We got to adopt Bitcoin. We have to have a money that cannot be inflated and manipulated and something that is controlled by rulers. We need a system governed by rules, math, backed by energy. That's what Bitcoin is.
What do you make of the rapidness of the adoption? Just more people saying, hey, this and this might be the answer.
People are really seeing this as a global macro asset, the best savings technology. You know, we talk about this a lot for the working class,
right,
to restore the American dream, but also to uplift people economically around the entire world. It's so important because inflation has sucked the life and the hopes of the future for so many people. And Bitcoin, I really do believe, is the fix.
And it's not just in America, it's around the world. You've talked about impoverished nations, that this is the key for them to get out of that situation.
This is a bottom-up phenomenon. This is a working class movement. How many technologies come around that empower the CEOs and the folks in the boardrooms, but also those people that are working, that are struggling, that are in developing nations.
Right.
Plus, when you think about technology, it should be deflationary, but that deflation's not flowing to us, the workers. With something like Bitcoin that, again, can never be inflated, that can actually allow people to save for the future. Why do I have to work for something that someone else can print? I don't want that. That's why we have so many quintillionaires and this wealth concentration, because it's a broken system at the core. And let's stop fighting over the symptoms. Let's address the core systemic issue. Let's fix the money.
Bitcoin is currently at its highest level since December 13th of 2025. We'll see if it continues on this trend. And it looks like whales are accumulating Bitcoin for the first time since April of 2025. What we could have been seeing at the end of last year is this thing called tax loss harvesting, meaning that because Bitcoin has no wash sale rules, meaning you could buy the asset back directly after selling it and capture the capital loss to offset your capital gains. Well, that probably shows why many wealthy people with advisors and many consultants were telling them to sell their Bitcoin at the end of the year so they can capture that spread or that capital loss that they can apply forward to future income gains in the future. I don't know exactly what was happening at the end of the year, but I know that 2026 is looking up. I know that interest rates are looking to come down. I know that the business cycle is turning in favor of small businesses versus out of favor, which it was for most of 2025. But instead of selling your Bitcoin, like tax loss harvesting your Bitcoin, you can borrow against your Bitcoin with no income taxes. And that's why we partner with a company like Ledn, the leader in Bitcoin-backed loans since 2018. They allow you to borrow against your Bitcoin without selling your Bitcoin. There's no credit checks and loans start at just 12.4%. You can get fiat in your account in less than 6 hours and the application takes just 2 minutes. The process is fast, simple, transparent, and requires no sort of checks on your credit. They've been the leader in Bitcoin-backed loans, and you can trust Ledn because they've never lost a single cent or sat of customer money. Go to learn.ledn.io/simply to get started today. One of the ways that you can become sovereign in this world, and one of the ways you can take back power from institutions, is by taking the power yourself. With that stored energy in Bitcoin, you can actually take that physically. You can memorize 12 words or 24-word seed phrase and remove the power from the existing financial system that has the ability to create money out of thin air. And when you remove your money from that system, well, they can't borrow against it, they can't rehypothecate it, and they can't create more. And that's why you need to work with the team at the Bitcoin Way. They're helping you to take back your sovereignty and your freedom from the system that is fighting back in all sorts of ways that you didn't elect for. Schedule a free 30-minute consultation with the team at thebitcoinway.com/simplybitcoin. All right. One of the reasons that you can be bullish heading into 2026 about Bitcoin is that despite the fact that registered investment advisors and brokers weren't able to sell Bitcoin alongside other products, Bitcoin was still the highest performing asset in terms of institutional products in the history of Wall Street. One thing that their clients want is the ability for them to be able to recommend Bitcoin as part of their portfolio. And that's just getting started. Listen to this quote from Coinbase CIO.
For those of us who have the luxury of being on the inside and seeing the incredible degree of onboarding that's occurring across finance, industrials, commercials, every company in the world now has to have a blockchain and AI strategy. If you don't, you have no hope of scaling. And so when you're at Coinbase or Reserve One or Grayscale, you get the luxury of seeing that sort of frenetic questioning and onboarding and companies coming and asking questions about how blockchain fits into their ecosystem. So that's why we're excited, because we know what the queue is. And we also understand, despite all the volatility, despite the relatively muted price action, the crypto ETFs, the Bitcoin ETF and others, were the best performing ETFs launched ever in US markets, ever. And they did that, and this is really, really important, Talia, they did that without being able to be proactively sold by the army of investment advisors and brokers that generally sell these products. So it's a really, really important nuance. These were the single best-selling product in the world, and no one was allowed to make a phone call to sell it or advertise it. That's really, really interesting. And so now that unlock is happening, where the rules are being kind of fairer now, where investment advisors can sell these products alongside their other products, it's hard not to be excited about that massive institutional onboarding, because we know that the retail market wants it, because they bought more of it than they ever bought a new ETF launch. And so as that regulatory clarity makes it possible for these brokers to sell it, you'll see more and more of these money center banks bring those products onto their platforms so their brokers can sell these products.
When you look at what's being replaced in portfolios, the most obvious place to look is by replacing bonds, which has been in a longest drawdown period in the history of bonds.
Look, we had basically regulatory overhang, which I think was holding Bitcoin down significantly, probably to the tune of 50%, which is why we saw a big spike. We expected lower interest rates. We expected more money printing. We didn't get that. So when you actually factor all of that in, the fact that we're riding that kind of 90K range for Bitcoin really does make sense to me. And I think when you combine that with the fact that we're starting to see significant stimulus, we're going to see real quantitative easing. We're seeing quantitative easing light right now. The Fed is starting to buy its own bonds. And I think demand for government debt is going to fall significantly next year, along with lower rates. So all of this bodes well for higher vol assets, including the likes of Bitcoin.
So yeah, Bitcoin is not in the same 4-year cycle that it has been in the past. Something changed this year. But when you look at the history of Bitcoin, it is the best performing asset in the world when you zoom out and when you take a longer term perspective in horizon. I believe that Bitcoin not only gives us the ability from a risk adjusted perspective to have good returns in this year when retail comes online, when registered investment advisors come online, when the whales come back online, when interest rates come back down. I also believe that it gives us the best opportunity to fight against the socialism regime that's coming into America. This ability to limit the First Amendment rights to freedom of speech. One of the ways that Bitcoiners use freedom of speech is through the open source code that we all leverage in order to run this fantastic network that's available to anyone, anywhere in the world. And you can exercise that by taking true sovereignty of your Bitcoin in your journey today. If you want to learn all about that, if you want to come on this journey with me in 2026, well, subscribe to the channel. And one of the ways that you can maximize your Bitcoin investments in 2026, talking about tax loss harvesting earlier in the segment in the show, is by buying Bitcoin mining rigs and machines. One of the ways you can do that is buying a state-of-the-art mining machine and depreciating the full asset value of that machine against your income for 2026. You can work with a company like SAS Mining. There's no middlemen, there's no markups, there's no contracts. You buy a state-of-the-art mining machine and you're mining Bitcoin straight to your wallet with 100% renewable clean energy. Use the QR code to get started today, and a member of their team will talk you through exactly what this means. Thank you for rocking with me for the first show of the year. It's time to fight back for our identity. This is Dante Cook with Bitcoin Simply. Happy stacking.